Carl Jung once identified a category of individuals whose psychological structure is so distinct, so evolutionarily advanced, and yet so misunderstood that they often live their entire lives believing they are fundamentally flawed. He didn't just call them rare. He considered them a necessary danger to the status quo. In his most private writings, Jung suggested that these individuals possess a differentiated consciousness, a level of awareness that allows them to see the machinery behind human behavior, the patterns behind history, and the truth behind the masks everyone else wears. If you are watching this, there is a high probability you have felt like a stranger in your own life. You have likely been told that you are too much, too intense, too sensitive, too analytical, or too serious. You have walked into rooms and felt the hidden emotions of others hit you like a physical wave. You have looked at the way society operates, the shallow conversations, the mindless routines, the desperate chase for material status, and felt not just boredom, but a deep existential recoil. Jung discovered that this recoil isn't a symptom of depression or social anxiety. It is a symptom of psychological evolution. But here is the dangerous truth that few psychology textbooks will tell you: this level of consciousness comes with a heavy price. To possess this personality type is to carry a burden that the majority of the population will never understand. You are not just living in the world, you are constantly decoding it. And that process can be isolating, exhausting, and perilous if you do not understand how to manage it. Today we are going to dissect the 8 definitive signs that you possess this rare psychological architecture. We will explore why Jung believed you are the antidote to a sleeping world. And more importantly, we will uncover the specific dangers you face, the shadow traps that hunt people with your potential. If you recognize yourself in these descriptions, it is time to stop apologizing for your nature and start mastering it. Because you are not broken. You are simply operating on a different operating system than the rest of the world. The first sign is what Jung classified as the possession of effect-toned complexes of unusual depth. In modern terms, you experience emotional reality at a resolution that is almost supernatural. For 95% of the population, an emotion is a fleeting event, something that happens to them, passes through, and is forgotten. But for you, emotions are not just events. They are landscapes. When you feel sadness, it is not just a bad mood. It is a descent into the collective grief of the human condition. When you feel joy, it is a transcendent experience that borders on the spiritual. Jung observed that this intensity is not a lack of emotional regulation, as many modern therapists might misdiagnose. It is actually a form of high-fidelity perception. You are picking up on frequencies that others are deaf to. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone was smiling and saying all the right things, but you felt a cold knot in your stomach? You knew with absolute certainty that they were lying or hiding a deep resentment. Everyone else at the table was charmed, but you were nauseous. That is not paranoia. That is your psychological instrumentation picking up on the dissonance between their persona, the mask they wear, and their shadow, the truth they hide. This depth makes you dangerous to people who live in denial. You become a living lie detector. Without saying a word, your presence demands truth. This is why you might find that certain people dislike you instantly without cause. They are not reacting to your behavior. They are reacting to your vibration. They can sense that you see them. And for someone who has built their entire life on a facade, being truly seen is the most terrifying thing in the world. The second sign leads us deeper into the dangerous aspect of your nature. You possess a sacred curiosity that refuses to accept the given world. Jung famously said, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you." Most people are content to let the world tell them who they are. They accept the religion of their parents, the politics of their friends, and the values of their society without a second thought. They live what Jung called the unexamined life. You, however, are physically incapable of doing this. From a young age, you likely frustrated your teachers and parents with the question, why? But you weren't asking for the mechanics of how things work. You were asking for the meaning of why things are the way they are. Why do we follow these arbitrary rules? Why do we value money over human connection? Why do we pretend to be happy when we are suffering? This trait is what makes you a disruptor. In a corporate setting, you are the one pointing out the ethical flaws in a profitable plan. In a family, you are the one bringing up the secrets that everyone else has agreed to ignore. Jung believed that this active thinking function acts as a scalpel cutting through the illusions that hold society together. But this is a lonely path. When you strip away the illusions, you often find yourself standing alone in the desert of the real. You have probably felt the exhaustion of being the only one who cares about the truth, while everyone else seems happy to play pretend. You must understand that this dissatisfaction is not a flaw. It is your fuel. It is the friction that creates the fire of your individuation. The third sign is conscious independence, often manifesting as the wolf archetype. Jung wrote extensively about the process of individuation, the psychological journey of separating oneself from the herd to become a whole, unique individual. For most, this is a terrifying concept because the herd offers safety. The herd validates your existence. To leave the herd is to risk death. But you discovered early on that the herd was suffocating you. You realized that the price of belonging was your soul. So you learned to walk alone. This isn't to say you are antisocial. In fact, you likely crave connection deeply. But you would rather be alone than be in a relationship that requires you to amputate parts of yourself. You have developed a self-reliance that intimidates others. You don't need constant external validation to know you exist. You have built an internal ecosystem that sustains you. This independence is often mistaken for arrogance or aloofness. People project their own insecurities onto your silence. They assume you think you are better than them when in reality you are just self-contained. You are comfortable in the void that terrifies them. But there is a trap here one Jung warned about. If you retreat too far, if you build the walls too high, independence can curdle into isolation. You risk becoming the hermit who knows the truth but has no one to share it with. The goal Jung taught is to leave the herd, to find yourself, but then to return to the village to share what you have found. And speaking of finding others who understand, I want to pause here for a moment. If you are resonating with these signs, the intensity, the questioning, the solitude, it is easy to feel like you are the only one. But you are not. There is a community of people who are waking up to the same reality. If you want to connect with this psychological elite and ensure you don't miss the deeper dives we take into Jung's work, I invite you to subscribe to the channel right now. It is a small action, but it is a signal to the algorithm and to yourself that you are prioritizing your own evolution. We are building a sanctuary for minds like yours, and we need you here. Now let's return to the analysis with the fourth sign. Perhaps the most mystical of them all. High-level intuition, or what Jung called perception via the unconscious. Jung was one of the first scientists to take intuition seriously, not as magic, but as a valid psychological function. For you, intuition is not a hunch. It is a high-speed information processing system. Your brain is constantly gathering millions of data points, micro-expressions, tone of voice, historical patterns, atmospheric pressure, and synthesizing them into a flash of knowing. You know things before they happen. You know people before they introduce themselves. This gift is often a curse. How many times have you warned a friend about a new partner only to be told you are being judgmental and then watched helplessly 6 months later as your prediction came true exactly as you saw it? This is the Cassandra complex, the burden of seeing the future but not being believed. Because you see the trajectory of actions, you live in a different timeline than others. While they are reacting to the present moment, you are already dealing with the consequences that will arrive 3 steps down the road. This can make you anxious as you are constantly anticipating crashes that no one else sees coming. But it also makes you a master strategist. Jung believed that this intuitive ability is what allows humanity to survive. You are the watchman on the tower. You see the storm before it breaks. The danger here is that you can become detached from the present moment, living entirely in the realm of possibilities and missing the reality of the here and now. Grounding is not just a buzzword for you. It is a survival mechanism. The fifth sign is a relentless craving for meaning. This goes beyond just wanting a fulfilling job. This is an existential hunger. Jung famously observed that among all his patients over the age of 35, there was not a single one whose problem in the last resort was not that of finding a religious outlook on life. He didn't mean religion in the dogmatic sense. He meant a connection to the infinite. For you, a life without deep meaning is a form of slow death. You cannot simply clock in and clock out. You cannot engage in relationships that are merely transactional. If you are doing work that feels soul-crushing, you don't just get bored, you get physically ill. Your body rejects inauthenticity. You have likely experienced periods of deep depression that were not caused by chemical imbalance, but by spiritual starvation. This puts you at odds with a modern world designed for superficiality. Society tells you that happiness comes from consumption. Buy the car, get the promotion, watch the show, numb the pain, but you see through the game. You know that comfort is not the same as fulfillment. This makes you dangerous to the economic machine because you cannot be easily bribed. You are driven by internal metrics of success, growth, truth, contribution, rather than external badges of honor. This craving often leads you into the dark night of the soul, a period of total collapse where you must rebuild your life from the ground up based on what is true for you, not what is expected of you. The sixth sign is a direct consequence of your growth. You frequently outgrow environments and people. Jung described life as a series of deaths and rebirths. Most people try to stay in the same stage of life forever, clinging to the familiar. They keep the same friends from high school, the same beliefs from childhood, the same habits for decades. You, however, are a creature of metamorphosis. You shed skins, and this is painful. You have likely had the experience of waking up one day and realizing you no longer speak the same language as your closest friends. It's not that you don't love them. It's that you can no longer fit into the small box they have constructed for you. This cycle of shedding often leads to periods of intense loneliness. You are in the void between who you were and who you are becoming. People will accuse you of being fickle or disloyal. They will say, "You've changed," as if it's an insult. To you, it's the highest compliment, but the danger is the guilt. You often carry a heavy load of guilt for leaving people behind, for breaking the unspoken contracts of stagnation. You must learn Jung's lesson. You cannot save others by staying small. Your growth triggers their insecurity, but it also offers them an invitation. Whether they accept it is not your responsibility. The seventh sign is what I call transformational presence. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But with you, the reaction is almost guaranteed. You have a catalytic effect on others. Have you noticed that strangers tell you their deepest secrets within minutes of meeting you? That people break down and cry in your presence, then apologize, saying, "I don't know why, I just told you that." This is because you naturally hold space. Your lack of judgment and your capacity for depth create a vacuum that pulls the truth out of others. You are a mirror. When people look at you, they see their own souls reflected back, their pain, their potential, their lies. This is a beautiful gift, but it is also the most dangerous aspect of your personality for your own well-being. Because you are an open channel, you attract the broken, the lost, and the energy vampires. Narcissists are drawn to you like moths to a flame because your empathy is the perfect food for their ego. People who refuse to do their own shadow work will attach themselves to you, hoping you will do the work for them. Jung warned of psychic infection, absorbing the unconscious emotions of others until you are sick with their toxicity. You must learn that your empathy requires gates, not just open doors. The eighth and final sign is a pervasive sense of undefined purpose. You feel a pull toward a destiny you cannot yet name. Jung called this the teleological nature of the psyche, the idea that we are not just pushed by our past, but pulled by our future. You have always felt that you are here for a reason. This isn't a delusion of grandeur. It is a biological imperative. You feel a tension, a restlessness, a sense that there is a masterpiece trapped inside you, waiting to be released. This purpose is rarely about becoming famous or wealthy. It is usually about bringing something new into the world, a new way of seeing, a new way of healing, a new form of art or understanding. But because this purpose is often ahead of its time, you have no roadmap. You are bushwhacking through the jungle of the unconscious with a machete while everyone else is driving on the highway. This leads to chronic doubt. Am I crazy? Am I wasting my life? Is this all just in my head? Jung would answer no. The anxiety you feel is the tension of the bowstring before the arrow is released. You are being prepared. Now we must confront the dangerous truth promised in the title. Why is this personality type perilous? Jung identified 3 specific shadows that haunt the psychological elite. If you do not integrate these, they will destroy you. First is the shadow of inflation. Because you see more than others, it is easy to fall into the trap of arrogance. You can become the misunderstood genius who looks down on the sheep. This separates you from humanity and turns your gift into a weapon. You must remember that understanding the game doesn't make you better than the players. It just gives you a different role. Humility is the anchor that keeps you from floating away into narcissism. Second is the shadow of the martyr. Because you feel the world's pain so deeply, you may decide that it is your job to save it. You sacrifice your health, your finances, and your joy on the altar of helping others. You become the sponge that soaks up the toxic waste of your family or workplace. Jung was clear, if you cannot help yourself, you cannot help anyone. Self-sacrifice without self-preservation is not noble. It is suicide. Third is the shadow of paralysis. You see so many possibilities, so many nuances, and so many potential outcomes that you become frozen. The analysis paralysis. You spend your life studying, thinking and planning, but never doing. You live in your head building magnificent castles in the clouds while your physical life crumbles. Jung emphasized that the process of individuation must be lived, not just thought. You must drag your insights down from the heavens and ground them in the dirt of reality. So where do you go from here? If you are indeed part of this rare psychological lineage, your life is not meant to be easy. It is meant to be meaningful. You are the immune system of the collective consciousness. When the world becomes too rigid, too cruel, or too unconscious, nature produces people like you to restore the balance. Your sensitivity is not a defect. It is the radar that detects the threats to our humanity. Your intensity is not a flaw. It is the energy required to break the chains of the past. Your solitude is not a punishment. It is the cocoon in which you are forging the future. But you cannot do this work if you are still fighting against yourself. The final step in your evolution is acceptance. Radical, unapologetic acceptance of your nature. You must stop trying to dim your light to make others comfortable. You must stop trying to translate your soul into a language that shallow people can understand. Instead, you must find the others. You must build the structures, the art, the businesses, the families that can hold your energy. You must protect your gift with the ferocity of a dragon guarding gold, because the world is currently teetering on the edge of a crisis of consciousness. We are drowning in information but starving for wisdom. We have more connection than ever, yet we have never been more lonely. The world does not need more people who fit in. It has plenty of those. The world needs you. It needs you to be brave enough to be complicated, deep, and real. It needs you to ask the dangerous questions. It needs you to stand in the fire of your own transformation and show us that it is possible to survive the burning. Jung spent his life mapping the ocean of the unconscious so that explorers like you wouldn't drown. Now the map is in your hands. The question is no longer, what is wrong with me? The question is, what am I going to do with this power? I want to hear from you. Which of these 8 signs resonates with you the most? Is it the burden of empathy, the isolation of independence, or the pull of an unnamed purpose? Share your story in the comments below.